Ladies and gentlemen, if you believe that the only way for you to make money in SaaS is by doing more marketing, more distribution, or to add more features, have some more unique perks in your product or whatever that means, then you are under the misconception, and that's not really how it works. Because there is a way more easier way on how you can make more MRR without any extra marketing or features. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how. So now, thing is, every founder and builder and their mom on fucking LinkedIn or Twitter or Reddit would always be screaming this idea of to ship fast, to iterate your MVP based on what your first five users were to say, and then to iterate based on that, or to get more users. So founders think that the answer is always more, like to add more features, more marketing, more traffic, right? And the real problem here isn't in more, it's in fixing on what you already have. Now, this is what I mean by that. If you were to properly think about it, there are only two proper ways on how to grow your SaaS MRR. And that is the external growth. These are in the ways of, your ads, your content, your outreach, your affiliate. These are what you call like relying on external things to grow your SaaS. And then there's the internal growth, like focusing the things that you already have, the things that are in your product, like your activation, your onboarding, your retention flows. And so the thing is, if you are stuck, if you're a SaaS founder and you are bootstrapped at around 10, 20 to 30K MRR, the real issue is that you don't need any more traffic. Of course, some of you may argue that you can always get more users, you can always infinitely grow your SaaS, which is true. But the thing is, if you're getting more traffic but your product isn't growing, there's something wrong with that. So the real issue isn't that you need more traffic, it's that your product experience is bleeding revenue faster than you can acquire it. Meaning that, let's say you're inputting inputs like more marketing budget, more ads, more feature development. You're doing this in a product that has broken user experience. This is what I mean by you are scaling a product with a broken product experience. Therefore, you are bleeding revenue faster than you can acquire revenue. And you know what? For the sake of it, before I carry on, a bit of a side tangent. This is basically this video right here is basically a recent client of mine, Bouncy AI, that I basically helped them to scale from to help them scale to 19K in MRR. And so this video, which is a whole 33 minutes video of me breaking down their UI and UX breakdown, it's basically me explaining how I made them this money and how I'm helping them to make more money. The reason why I mention this is because this is just some social proof that I really want to throw in so that I don't sound like someone who's just talking out of my ass in my coolest leather jacket. Holy shit. Alright, now back to the video. Now that you already know that the real problem isn't really acquisition, it's what happens after your users sign up. So the thing is, instead of adding more features, scaling ads, or doing more marketing, doing more UGC content and all this stuff, what you want to do right now is to focus on the three things to actually keep your revenue. And these three things are basically the things that are tailored to your internal growth. Shit like your onboarding flow. This can be in a way of to get users to their first value moment, to shortening the time to value of your onboarding process, and then activation triggers. These are things that are are basically triggers to nudge your users to the aha moment way closer and way faster so that they don't get lost and they don't go on a side quest. And then retention loops. These are the things to make them come back daily. And then once they come back daily, what you want to do is that you reward them for coming back because it gets them on a dopamine hit. And once you, this is just some like user psychology stuff, so that they're way more willing to use your product. And when that happens, then lifetime value increases. They are way more willing to actually upgrade to a higher plan. And then the beauty in fixing these three things is that once you actually nail this, then your marketing actually becomes 10 times more profitable. And the reason being is because when you are actually doing these three things before you actually go all in into distribution, what you're doing is that you're basically building out the really strong structure before you actually build the skyscraper in itself, if that makes sense. The mistake that most founders were to do is that they would they will ship the product as fast as possible, which is, I mean, nothing wrong with that. And then you go all in into building, or well, my mistake, into distribution. Now the problem with that is that you could be building a supercar with scrappy parts. Sure, it can work, it can drive for a couple of miles, but then after a while, once after the car is moving fast, it's just gonna fall apart, just like your product. So the problem here is your product experience, and that's what you want to be fixing first, is your UI and your UX. Now I'll explain to you how it will make you more profitable by showing you a hierarchy on what is the thing that actually drives MRR. We got this hierarchy of retention, activation, conversion, and acquisition. I mean, as it follows, right? Retention is, keeping users longest, lifetime value. But I really want to focus on these two things, the retention and acquisition. These are like the main two things that I really want to focus on. Retention sits at the top because when a user were to stay for 12 months, that that user is worth 6 times more than a user who just pay for a product for 1 month and 2 months and then they just churn and never to use again. Fuck, they might even go to your competitor, as a matter of fact. Because I want you to understand one thing, that it's even in bold, that real money is made in keeping your customers, not by continuously chasing new ones. Stick that into your fucking head. Real money, your real MRR is made by you getting those users and keeping those current users. And now at the very bottom is acquisition, which is, I mean, getting more signups. Now the thing is, most founders actually have this twisted. They have this upside down. They obsess over the bottom, which is, more acquisition here. And when the top three are completely broken, the top three being this, like, activation, conversion, and retention, which is the things that I cover up here just now. But the things, you cannot scale what is broken. If you 10x your ad spend with, let's say, a 7% conversion rate, and like a 40%, 50% churn annually, then you just be at a 10x loss. So I really hope that this is actually drilling into your mind that your priorities are basically fucked. Everyone is basically talking about, oh, you should just market and distribute. Like, every technical founder should learn on how to market, which is not wrong, but really depending on where you are, you gotta do things right. And so moving on, now that you already know that the way on how you make more MRR without any marketing or any extra features is by focusing on the internal growth. The triangle hierarchy I show you is the how. Now the question is, how do you actually do it? The first is the onboarding. This is the first thing we're going to be focusing, the first building order we're going to be focusing on when it comes to the internal growth. And the onboarding here is basically the bridge between the user just signing up and the value moment, right? The onboarding is like the bridge. Okay, right now I hope that I kind of like draw a bridge, right? This is where they are, which is the current state, and then this is like the value moment, the first aha moment of like what determines the break or break of your product, whether users stay or not, which is the value moment. And this bridge right here, this whole structure is the onboarding process. Now, most founders would to think that the onboarding is about welcome email or about the questionnaire after the SSO, after they sign out, you would ask them a bunch of questions, which is wrong. This is actually how a proper onboarding process actually looks like. This is the whole framework. The first step is you would want to ruthlessly simplify the onboarding process. So if, let's say, for example, you got 8 steps in your sign up process, maybe you could actually cut that down into 3 steps. So you're basically removing the 5 steps that don't matter down to the 3 steps that do actually matter here. And then next is to shorten your time to first value. Notice how I said time to first value. I'm not saying TTV, I'm saying the first value, because in every product, doesn't matter if you're doing a freemium or a free trial, you can always get your user to the first aha moment in, let's say, 5 minutes. And when it comes to the aha moment, which is just the value moment, just in fucking different words, it doesn't necessarily have to be anything big or anything crazy. The value moment of your product is just a thing that determines the perception of a user to think that, oh shit, this product can actually help me to solve my problem. So at all times, your time to first value it shouldn't take that long. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, to be fair. If if your average time to value is like around 10 to 15 minutes, you're fucked. I would even say like maybe even like 7 to 8 minutes is a stretch, but yeah, like at best, like just keep it simple. Just and notice how this actually correlates to simplifying your ruthlessly simplifying your onboarding. Because if you're to simplify shit, then your time to first value moment should be under 5 minutes. Then moving on is to add product bumpers. These so-called product bumpers can come in a way of checklists, progress bars, tooltips. These, to put it simply, are basically things to guide them to the key moment here in your product. But do not mistake the thing about adding your product bumpers is a distraction or something like that. No, like I literally said that the purpose of your product bumpers is to guide them to a straight path. If it's not doing that, then you should just remove it. You should just like, yeah, get rid of it. It's just distraction, really. And then right after is conversational bumpers. This can come in a way of email sequences to bring inactive users or bringing back users to finish the onboarding process for those who actually didn't complete it. And then last but not least, the last process is to remove friction points, meaning to remove literally anything that blocks your user to get to the first aha moment. This can be like confusing copy, unclear CTAs of where users actually get stuck. So literally anything that slows down or to block a user to get to the aha moment, fucking get rid of it, really. Now, these are just frameworks that you can apply to your product, and this works for any product, really. Doesn't matter what niche you're in, doesn't matter if you're doing a free trial or freemium. This applies to all sort of niches, and I'm giving you the weapon, I'm giving you the framework. Now you can apply it to your product. And the second thing, or moving on to the second thing of the internal growth, is activation triggers. Getting users into the door is step one, which is the onboarding pathway. But the thing is, this is just the name of the game. Most users don't naturally find their way to the aha moment on their own, so you gotta push them there. And so activation triggers are just nudges, just prompts or pathways that guide users to experience the value buffet before they lose interest. Or maybe these are triggers for you to actually make sure that they don't go on a side quest. The onboarding triggers mission is to just get them to focus on the main mission. There's no time of side quest. You're just here to speed run and to just beat the boss battle here. By using the bowling alley framework, I feel like this gives you more clarification. This is the current state of your user, which is the onboarding process. Now the desired outcome, which is the what you call it, the bowling pins, they are the value moment. And I see you see the bumpers here. Just like like beginner starters when they learn how to play bowling, they would have this. Do I really have to explain that? Fucking hell. They would have these activation triggers. Now the purpose of these triggers are as follows. This is how it actually looks like for you to for you to actually build these activation triggers, and that is to map the current UI and UX of your activation path. And then once you have the mapped out thing, which by the way, if you're curious on how to do that, you can visit some of my other YouTube videos like the Bouncy AI video. That is basically like me mapping out their whole UI and UX process, and that can actually give you some guidance on how to actually do it. Now, once you actually do that, you'd want to identify clearly on what is your first value moment of your product, which is the desired outcome here, which is the what you call it, the bowling pins. And then once that happens, this is when you would want to remove any friction points or any unnecessary steps of your activation path. Kind of similar to like the onboarding process, you would see that the formula here actually it connects the dots, it all makes sense. So the lesson here is I want you to really picture the bowling alley framework and to think about bowling the bowling pins. The bowling bumpers are basically your activation triggers, and the triggers are just guidelines to get your users to the aha moment without getting lost and to get them there as fast as possible here. But then, sorry to break it to you, this is just the nature of the game. Even if they activate, they'll still churn if you don't bring them back. which is why the retention loop exists. And this is, I would even say, yeah, a very, very important thing as you remember from the hierarchy. The retention loops are systems to bring users back daily, weekly, and since it is a loop, this is as follows here, right? The first step of the retention loop happens when a user were to complete the activation event. This is basically to say that they have experienced the first value of your product, and then the first trigger brings them back. This can come in a way of a notification like an email or those in-app messages, or maybe just a urge from your user to come back to use a feature. This comes down to how good your product is and how sticky your whole entire offer of your product is. And then after that is your user will to experience the value again. This value can come in a way of when they were to complete a task, when they were to set something up, or if they were to see an insight from a dashboard. And then when this happens, when they were to see the value again, the reward mechanism starts to hit. When they see value, they get a sense of dopamine hit of progress and fulfillment. The gratification of them wanting more were to actually make them to form habits. Now this is the key. This is when your product becomes a daily use for your users, and then it's just repeat here. It's just repeat. So this whole cycle is just repeating yourself. It's basically like if you're training a dog and you want your dog to sit, you want your dog to obey you, what do? You give them treats, right? Same thing with your users. So these are all basically frameworks that I'm giving you, and you can apply it to your own product. But if you want to apply this whole entire framework to your own specific product, right under this video you can basically book a one-on-one free meeting schedule with me, and we can basically apply this whole entire general framework to your specific product. So if you want to make more MRR in your SaaS without having to rely on CAC, more ads or more marketing, more distribution, or to add some random features in your product, and you don't want to waste money and time as much, then this is for you. This is perfect for you. Yeah, but only book the appointment if you're making more than 10K per month, and then we can make more fucking money together. So don't put this in your to-do list, or you say that you're gonna do this tonight, whatever. No, do it right now if you really want to scale your SaaS. So I'll see you there.